All right, welcome back to the best training channel on YouTube. Took a week off, had a deload, didn't do a lot, did a little bit of training, but I didn't really think there was much value to be had through any of the sessions that I did last week. Plus it was a busy week for me as well. Had my daughter, had a lot going on. So most of my sessions were about 45 minutes-ish long and didn't do a whole lot. I wanted to take a good week of just doing some very minimal load, some very minimal volume, especially after that last session last week, hitting the 180 front squats for a set of 6. That kind of took a lot out of me. And then Sunday, I actually went out, played a little pickup ball, and my legs were absolutely fried for about 3 days after that. So took an extra day off, did some low volume, did some low intensity, and now we're ramping it back up as we start block 2 of this strength cycle. So the original plan I had today was going to be doing some very long resisted sprints, follow up with some other sprints. Obviously I'm outdoors at the track today. Today is the Icelandic national holiday, or like Iceland's independence. So June 17th, this is a holiday where it kind of lined up as well as that there's like a big car weekend here in Akureyri. So here in Iceland in the summer, one weekend, everyone, it's kind of like a car show. Everyone brings their cars out. They have a little get together. It's kind of like a weekend long party. Today is the day where they're using the indoor facility. They got cars inside there. They're doing their car show in there. So I can't sprint inside. So I'm outside today, which means that I got to change up today's session a little bit. My long resisted sprints, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do them the exact way that I wanted to, but we're still going to get in some quality work today and get prepped for this new strength block that we're on. So I've been going through a little bit of my warm-up, kind of going through some of my drills now, and then I'm going to start hitting some more intense pieces as I ramp up towards what I'm going to be doing for the first part of my workout today. The majority of my warm-up is done. I still have a few drills that I'm going to do before I get into today's session. The original plan that I had was I wanted to do somewhere around 40 to 50 meter sled sprints for about 3 to 4 repetitions. Follow that up with the same distance without a sled for about 3 to 4 repetitions. The sprints without the sled would be about 95% effort, just trying to work on longer distances, staying more relaxed and smooth at those high efforts. But I don't have access to the sled today. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I've got a nice wind kind of pushing in one direction. So what I'm going to do is when I do my resisted sprints, I'm going to sprint into the wind for that 50 meters. And then when I do my sprints after, I'm going to sprint with the wind for those 50 meters. So it's almost going to be like I've got a bit of a resisted sprint and then an assisted sprint, since I'm going to be running with a tailwind at those, which should help out giving me that relaxed feeling at that 95% effort range. So might end up being a pretty decent session, even though I'm not going to be able to do exactly what I had planned out. But regardless of the circumstances, still going to put some work in. So what we're going to start off with is finishing off my last little bit of my warm-up. I'm going to do some 50 meter build-ups. So I'm probably going to go like 20 meters at a moderate pace, 20 meters at a building pace, and then the last 10-ish meters at 80, 85%, kind of building up through that 50 meters. Probably do 2 to 3 of those. Then I'm going to finish off with some straight leg bounds over the same distance. I'm going to convert that straight leg bound into a run for probably the last 10 to 15 meters on that. So it'd be somewhere around a 30 meter to 40 meter straight leg bound, and then transition into a little bit more of like upright sprinting. And then we're going to get into our 50 meters into wind sprints is what we're going to call those today. So first up, knock out some build-ups, and then we'll move on to straight leg bounds. All right, hopefully y'all can hear me as I walk backwards and try to keep the wind away from this mic. Build-ups felt decent. I'm gonna do my kind of building straight leg bounds now. Probably gonna start off a little bit shorter and choppier for the first 15-ish meters, then build my way up into longer, full-on straight leg bounds. And then the last 10 meters, probably transition into more of a cycle, what would look like upright sprinting. So only gonna do maybe 2 to 3 of these, and then we're gonna throw on the spikes and start knocking out some 50s. All right, a couple things real quick. One, I think these 50s are gonna be hard. I haven't actually done any sort of like higher intensity sprints over about 40 meters for quite a while. During this training phase that I'm in right now, one thing I wanna try to do is run a 60 or maybe even a 100-meter dash. And that means I gotta start extending my training distances out a little bit. So the last training phase I was on was strictly focused on running a 40-yard dash. 40 yards in meters is just over 36 total meters. So my training didn't really need to go past 30 meters ever. So there was some sled sprints I did, 30 meters, different variations of accelerations at 15, 20, 25 meters. My max velocity work was done in 10 to 20 meter sections. So this 50 is going to be the longest sprint that I've done in quite a while, and I'm not sure how it's going to feel. The other thing about it is the outdoor track that I'm on. The reason I never train out here is because this outdoor track is not good at all. The surface itself is Mondo. So if you know anything about track surfaces, Mondo is kind of the standard on what you want to run on. It's a lot more forgiving, it's a lot softer. Mondo was the surface that they implemented in like the professional track circuit, probably like late 2000s. And when you started seeing a lot of people running a lot faster because of that surface, was because it has a little bit more give to it. Athletes can get more spring off of it, essentially getting a little bit more return on each step that they put into the ground. So Mondo is what every professional track surface is made out of. It's what every collegiate track surface is going to be made of now. It's like, it's the standard. Every single place that hosts any sort of like major competition or international competition has Mondo. This surface is also Mondo. The problem with it is, being here in Iceland, our winters are about 8 months long. So this Mondo is frozen for about 8 months out of the year. When it kind of thaws out and the snow's gone and the rain's gone, the wear of this surface just being frozen for such a long period of time leaves it incredibly hard now. So that benefit that you get from sprinting on Mondo is kind of gone after the amount of years that it's been frozen and then thawed out and then frozen and then thawed out. So it's not the best surface, which is why I will always choose to run indoor, because the indoor track that we have here is also Mondo, but given the fact that it's indoor and it doesn't have to try to fight against the elements of Iceland, that surface inside is a lot softer, a lot easier to run on. I could already tell that this feels a lot harder when I was doing those build-ups and doing the bounds. So I'm not sure how these 50s are gonna feel, but I have a feeling tomorrow my feet and arches are probably going to be a lot more fatigued and sore than usual, given the fact that I'm running 50 meters, but also running 50 meters on a very, very hard surface. But enough bitching about the surface. I got my session written down. So I got anywhere between, I put down I want to do 3 to 4 reps at 40 meters with 15 to 20% resistance on the sled. But because I'm using like the wind, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a decent amount of wind going on right now. Because I'm using the wind and it's not going to be a very specific amount of resistance, I'm going to do 50 meters today. So we'll do 50 meters for 3 to 4 reps against the wind. Use that wind as the resistance for today's sprints. And then we'll probably do another 3 to 4 repetitions with the wind, using that wind as assistance and trying to get that 95%-ish range on those last few reps. And then I might do some plyos at the end. I don't really want to do plyos on this surface, but if my legs are feeling good and I'm up for it, then we're gonna knock out a little bit of plyos before we end today's sessions. I'm gonna set the camera up. We're gonna knock out some 50s and see how it goes. All right, rep number 1, felt decent. 50 meters, not too bad. It sounded like I was running on concrete. I don't know if the camera picked it up because I left the mic on the camera as I took off, but I don't know if you guys can hear this. But it sounds like I'm running on concrete. I can kind of feel my spikes as I run on top. So like right around the ball of my foot, I can feel that pressure into my foot because the spike's not getting into the track like it normally would when I run indoors. Sometimes you got to deal with what you got. And this is what I got today. What I'm doing in my 3-point stance as I'm doing these sprints is it's not a true 3-point stance. I'm kind of extending my arm out a little bit and trying to mimic my foot placement and shin angles as if I was in the blocks. So my normal 3-point stance, let's say the line is gonna be right here. I'm 1 foot behind the line and then pretty close to toe right behind my heel. And I get into this position about right here. Because I'm gonna be using blocks when I do whatever sprint test I decide to do at the end, I wanna try to mimic that foot placement and mimic those shin angles. So my stance right now on my 3-point is a little bit more extended because I want to try to mimic those shin angles a little bit deeper and try to mimic that initial push off. Even though I'm not using blocks today, I still want to put in some work that's going to be similar to what I'm doing when I do blocks. When I do blocks. I don't know if that's proper English. That's why you'll see as I do this over the course of the weeks, when I'm doing these 50s, we'll get inside and I'll do some other angles. You're gonna see kind of this front arm extended out a little bit further in front of me because I wanna mimic those angles as if I'm being in the blocks. So the rest in between these 50s, general rule of thumb is 1 minute for every 10 meters. I'm running 50s right now, which would mean I need about 5 minutes rest in between each of these. That's gonna be kind of give or take. I don't have a watch on or anything like that. As long as I feel like I got my breath back, legs feel good, and then I'm gonna knock out the next rep after that. All right, 4 reps done was the top end of that range that I gave myself. Felt good. Using the wind as my resistance today since I don't have a sled to work with today. Now we're gonna Missy yell at this bitch, put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. We're gonna go with the wind at about 95% effort for another, I'm gonna give myself 3 reps on these. I feel like 3 reps will be good. So my original plan with this was 40-meter sprints, 15 to 20 kilos on the sled, all out as hard as you could go, and then move into 40-meter sprints without the sled, 95% effort, try to stay smooth and relaxed at that high effort, and try to build a little bit more volume on some longer sprints. Because I feel like when I go into my 60-meter sprint or my 100-meter sprint, depending on which one I choose to do, the biggest factor of what is going to give me a good time versus a bad time is going to be my ability to remain relaxed through that 40, 50, 60, 70 meter range, and able to kind of maintain a smooth, fluid sprint throughout. Because what I have a tendency to do, same thing with a lot of people, I try to run hard sometimes. Like on a few of those 50s right there, obviously I'm going into the wind, so you got to put a little bit higher effort into it. Like the last 2 reps, I felt like I was really trying to run hard. And when I'm trying to run hard, I don't feel like I run fast. So I want to do these next 50s, 95% effort, try to feel smooth and just make it feel like an effortless 95%. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it makes sense in my mind. So smooth is fast, fast is smooth. That's going to be the goal for the next 3 reps. So a couple more minute break here, and then we're going to knock out the last few 50s for today's session. Running with the wind is much easier than running against the wind, obviously. But one of those reps, the wind picked up quite a bit, and I could actually feel it pushing against my back the entire time I was running, which was a really unique feeling because I run inside all the time. That tailwind was very fun to run with. Made those 95% efforts feel very good. One thing I really like about this kind of like weekly split that I do is when I go into a deload like I did last week, I don't do a lot of volume, I don't do a lot of intensity. I try to just get some basic movement in, get in and out, let my body recover. I feel very lazy going into the beginning of the next block. Because I've done a whole entire week of lower intensity, not really firing up the CNS, not doing a lot of external load, going into Monday where you need to start ramping things up. This split where you start off your week with sprints, regardless of if it's acceleration work, max velocity work, something that's getting yourself where the CNS has got to fire at almost peak capacity, you get everything flowing, but there's not a lot of external load that you're fighting against. Like, it's not me against a barbell right now. It's just me on the track, putting my foot into the ground, trying to sprint as hard as I can. It's a great way to kind of knock off that fatigue feeling from that deload week and ramp things up and get ready for the weight room tomorrow. So that's going to be the plan. Weight room is going to be tomorrow. This format that I'm on for the next 4 weeks is going to be the exact same format that I've been on the previous 4 weeks. We're going to be doing heavier lifting, lower repetitions, ramping our way up to doing some 2 to 3 rep maxes on a couple things. So this is going to be a very fun block. This is kind of like the intensification of what we did off the previous 4 weeks. So the last 4 weeks, like I said, we were at the beginning. I don't remember how many videos you got to go back, but probably go back about 10, 15 videos where it says start of a new strength block or something like that on the thumbnail. I explain how we're looking at accumulating volume, not really focus too much on the external load on everything. Now we are focusing a little bit more on the external load. We're going to be intensifying what we've been building for the last 4 weeks. So this is kind of the intensification before we go into like a realization phase where we test off some really heavy maxes on a couple things. So this is that transition period where things start to get a lot more fun, a lot more heavier. There's going to be days where I leave the gym feeling like I got hit by a truck, which is all planned out. Everything's good to go. I'm really excited for this next 4 weeks, and this is going to be a great strength cycle. Enough of that today. Session is done. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I always forget to say at the beginning of the video, so for the 7 people that have made it this far through the video, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.